use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Great scores! Yes! She got up! He's just perfect. And that's sweet it is! Collingwood win the grand final! It's time!
Well, welcome back, guys, to another episode of Racing Extra. We've finally made our way to one of Luke's lucky numbers, episode number 13. And this episode, we are pumped to be welcoming Signace on board. Signace provide everything from branded signage and flags to the eye-catching signs that you see throughout the AFL and NRL, including the Brisbane Lions and West Tigers. Welcome on board, Signace. Now, Luke, how are we feeling, episode 13?
Yeah, my lucky number, wrapped to be here for 13 episodes. And yeah, lucky to survive our Friday night.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah, what about, so anyone who hasn't seen it, go out and see The Gladiator 2. Absolutely.
It was a brilliant movie.
Amazing movie. Like, I loved the first one, obviously 20 years ago, and the second one is just as good. But do not go see it in 4D. This is a public service announcement that do not do it. Anyone who hasn't been to 4D, it's basically like getting strapped into a roller coaster chair. They spit water at you. It's like a leaf blower at you. The chair goes like this. I remember looking over at one point and Bella had the box of popcorn in her lap and was flapping about like this. There's popcorn in her hair. She's getting smacked in the face by a jet stream of water.
Can you all just imagine for a second? Luke sends me a text while I'm at work. Hey, babe, you want to come for a movie night? I thought I was in for a really nice date night. Got my hair
told her it was
blow
Notebook
dry.
2.
Yeah. I got my hair blown out that day. We were going to the races the next day, so I was feeling all pretty and ready to go. And then I'm getting water fucking splashed at my head. There's air pressure being thrown around my seat. I get motion sickness too to just top it off. So it was an experience and a half. And I don't like gory movies.
You need a seatbelt in there. It's the best thing.
What
really topped it off is, I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but there's a thing near your legs that's designed to scare you. And because Bella had her feet on the chair the whole time trying to hang on, she finally put her feet down on the steps, and this thing went whack whack whack, and she shot 84 feet in the air.
I think I actually
and
squealed.
And 40 people in the cinema looked around like we were the issue.
It was definitely not for me. I don't think we'll be going back to 4D. Well, I won't be.
Well,
anyway.
recap. Everyone needs to go see Gladiator 2. Everyone does not need to watch it in 4D.
That's Bella and Luke's movie reviews for this week.
What about your week? You came home very pumped after interviewing a special person.
Yeah, Monday was great. We went and saw our sponsors, EMF, at their gym at Nerang, and they had actually Brooke Hanson, the Olympian there. She was an Olympic swimmer, and she's the ambassador for the Gold Coast Sporting Awards, which are coming up, and I got to have a little chat with her about everything coming up, and it was so good to talk to a sports person like her. She's obviously at the elite caliber, and just the way she supports that grassroots sport and the way she talks about mentoring people, you can tell it's her real passion, and I don't think they could have picked a better ambassador for the Gold Coast Sporting Awards.
Oh, that's brilliant. Like, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to watch it when it's out.
Yeah, it should be out soon. We're waiting for the little go-ahead, so everyone will have to wait for that piece of content to come out.
Hopefully I get a sneak peek being on board
I
the team.
haven't even got a sneak peek, actually. I've heard that the guys have edited it, and they're not letting me see it.
Well, we'll have to wait for the post like everyone else, unfortunately.
Yeah. This week, we are doing things a little bit differently on the show, and we are welcoming our friend Matt Nevett on. Matt, you're joining us to rip into what was a great spring, and of course, we're going to take a cheeky look at Kembla and Ascot this weekend. But first off, how are you feeling after that Spring Carnival? Have you pulled up lame?
Hey Bella, hey Luke, so great to be on Racing X. Love what you guys are doing, so absolutely thrilled to be on. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks, months, sort of just becomes a blur by the end of it. But the last couple of weeks in particular have been awesome, especially Cup Week there at Flemington. So many great stories, and I'm sure you guys have been enjoying it from afar as well.
Oh, it's been nuts. We actually came down for Derby Day, and even though it was one day of that week, it was just one of the craziest days I've ever seen at the races.
I still have a hangover, mate. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there's a espresso martini tap on the rooftop, and let's just say I got a fair working out by myself.
Yeah, the only issue on Derby Day is that often it's so busy that it can be hard to get a drink. But I'm glad you're able to find one, Luke. But it's
not when Bella's not drinking and you can get 4 per person. So yeah, do the quick maths.
You're welcome that I was working that day.
One of the things I love about Cup Week is just all of the days are different too. Like, you get a different experience every day you're there. And, you know, there's criticism, I suppose, at times around how maybe Oaks Day doesn't quite live up to the level that the others do, but even it has its moments and it's I guess special elements. So yeah, it was such a cool week.
Well, they do a great job in the fact that it is a Thursday, and you're getting the general public to the races on a Thursday where most people have work. So the fact that they can get the numbers that they actually did and the turnout and the vibe that was there is a credit to them at Flemington, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and that's their big thing, isn't it? Like, I don't know if there's another meeting around the world that's not on a public holiday or a weekend that attracts 50,000 people and has that sort of atmosphere. So yeah, it's still a great day. It's probably just that the other 3 days are so incredible that it sometimes puts it to the side a little bit. But that's Cup Week. There's so many great highs to it, and like I'm sure we'll get to it. But I just love what they've done with the last day of the carnival.
Yeah, can we go back?
Well, we're going to take a little different approach. Like you said, Matt, this spring was just full of stories, so many highs and lows. So I'm curious to know, if we were all to give a racing report card, what would be your A graders, so your highlight of the spring, and your D graders, your most disappointing of the spring. My A grader was the coverage this year. This is my first year pretty much being 100% spectator, my first year not working in the stables, and every time you turned on the telly, it felt like grand final week. The vibes were high. It was 9 o'clock at night and I'm watching Channel 9 and the horses are on. Francesca Comani's interviewing people. Like, you just don't get that hype around racing anywhere else. Whereas footy, year round, you turn on the footy channel, the vibe's there, it's a constant. Whereas for us during Cup Week, that vibe was just a constant high and it was electric. It made you so excited to go to the races. But
yeah,
sorry, Matt, you go.
I totally agree with you, Bella. Like, I'm glad you said that. The coverage was awesome, and like I didn't get to see it all because I was there for so much of it. But every time I turned it on, like the camera shots were so cool. They did things a little bit differently there, and getting Billy Slater on to do the post-race interviews on horseback, like that was a risky move from Channel 9, but it paid dividends. And I think it just showcased a different side to the sport. So massive tick from me as well.
It was such a highlight too, because he does bring in those sort of NRL fans, and like we all know that he's a massive and avid race goer and race lover. So it was good to see him nail it, and to be fair, like it was one of the peak things for the carnival for him doing those interviews on horseback.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, isn't it? Like connecting with that audience that may not necessarily be with racing like all year round, and getting someone like Billy Slater in Cup Week, you're going to be able to get people to turn on the TV and make that connection. So yeah, they did a great job there. I must admit, the biggest highlight for me, I think the A grade on the report card has to be VS Justina.
Oh, wow.
If you go back to like Cox Plate week when she comes down, James McDonald gets dislodged. To think that she would go on and win a Cox Plate in a track record and then smash them in a champion stakes, like it was just breathtaking, her performance, and she goes into 2025 as the best horse in the world, probably.
Oh, 100%. And like you said, the story and the lead up behind that, what happened at track work, so many eyes were on her just to see how she performed. So it was just outstanding what she was able to do. Massive hats off to Chris Waller. That's a training performance and a half.
Like
yeah,
when
Look, I mean, you've ridden horses. Like, can you believe what she was able to do there in a Cox Plate?
Her win in the Cox Plate to me was unbelievable. That was just freakish, especially the time she ran and the manner she did it in. I wasn't too concerned when James come off her the week before, because she basically just had a play gallop, in my opinion, and Chris said she pulled up sweet. But I did speak to James a couple of days after the fall, and I said, what do you think? And he was a bit blue and sore and sorry for himself and didn't think she'd be running in the Cox Plate. But she proved us all wrong, and gee, she's a good horse. Like, just the way that she won those 2 races after the back of that, like, she's
So
really
tough.
stamped herself.
Yeah, no, I'm already so excited to see what she can do in the autumn. They could put her in any race. They could probably run her up the straight at Flemington in the Lightning and she'd win.
I don't think we'll be getting much value.
Those good
for
horses
sure.
can do it though. Like you look at the likes
Yeah.
of Maccabi Diva and that, they could be good sprinters when they need to be sprinters and then come out and win a Melbourne Cup. So, and
Yeah, exactly
to be
right.
fair, do you reckon she'd have been $1.70 in a Melbourne Cup if she went round?
Oh, no, I don't think she would have been that short, but gee, I would have definitely backed her, especially the way that she won in the Champion Stakes. I would have happily had my heart earned on her. And it's funny, isn't it? Like, for a lot of us, that's the race that we'd probably want to win the most. So if she was ours, the temptation must have been enormous to run her in that race. But Chris Waller's such a mastermind. He takes that cautious approach, doesn't he? And he never really gets them wrong.
There's always a plan in the back of his mind. So I'm sure he would have had it labelled and stamped after she went over the line in the Cox plate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would have loved to see
What was your highlight of the carnival, Luke?
Mine was just the carnival itself in both states, to be quite honest with you. We were fortunate enough to go down for Everest Day and then go down for the Melbourne Cup Carnival on Derby Day. And just the vibe that both racetracks had and the people that were there, and whether you're in the members or you're on the rooftop at Flemington or you're out in the back in the garden or the public area, it was just nuts. And like as someone who's always been on the other side of the fence and had to do it the professional way, and you don't get to have a beer and see the horses go around, you're really in amongst it. It was just good to see how thriving racing is from the public's perspective.
Agree.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm interested to get your take on like whether or not you think the Everest actually is a good thing for racing being on Caulfield Cup Day. Like it's a big discussion in Melbourne. I feel like it makes the day a bigger event, but then I also can understand the argument, people saying that it takes a bit away from the Caulfield Cup. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it has to take away from the Caulfield Cup, and simply because you've got the 10 best jockeys in Melbourne flying to Sydney to ride in the Everest. Like, you can't argue with that. I'd love to see them split, but the racing war between Victoria and New South Wales isn't going to let that happen. But I just love to see a bit more communication, the fact that they have an Everest one weekend, then they have a Caulfield Cup the next weekend, then they have another Group 1 the following weekend, and they sort of take their turns. And as a racing fan and a race goer, imagine just flying interstate back and forth and going to Group 1 racing for 10 weeks of the year. Like, look, my liver would pay for it, my bank account would be absolutely drained, but geez, I'd have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for the racing fan, for the punter that goes along, but I feel like the way it is at the moment, if you're going to consider the majors, like the Caulfield Cup's always been considered a major, you can't really hold two majors on the same day. You can't have the French Open and Wimbledon on the same day.
But you can't. Like, you take Federer and Nadal away from Wimbledon and play them at Roland Garros. It's just a different tournament. But like you said,
I think it is interesting that though. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, Luke, but how it does affect, obviously, I don't want to say the quality, because it was so great to see Harry Coffey come through and win that race on Duke de Sessa. But you have the racing, the prestige, and then the modern next-gen experience, and you're feeding both appetites on the same day. The young Sydney goers get to go to the races, spend an absolute fortune, have the best time, and everyone who's there and is a racing purist can go and enjoy the same day. And I think from a turnover point of view, which is what we are all about in racing, I think they are kind of hitting the mark, even though it does split our best horses, jockeys and trainers.
Yeah, and what I like about what the MRC do with it is, you know, there's nothing they can do about it. Like, it's almost out of their hands in a way. So they just embrace it. You know, they understand that they're not going to get some of the top jocks there. So they live with it. You know, I was there on Caulfield Cup Day, and when the Everest was run, like, it was such a cool atmosphere. And then you had the Caulfield Cup half an hour later. So if they can embrace it and it works, I mean, you can understand how the MRC will go about it. But in the back of my mind, there's just that thing where it's like, you would like them to have their own time in the sun.
In a perfect world, I'd love to see them work hand in hand, but as a realist, it's never going to happen. But maybe the drama is what fuels the fire, and it's the reason why people keep watching, because you get Melbourne keep trying to outbid Sydney, and Sydney keep trying to outbid Melbourne, and things just keep getting bigger and more money and more things get thrown at them, and people like me and you keep going to the races, turning up and having a good time.
Yeah, that's it. So what didn't work for you guys then in the carnival?
Oh, well, you go, Belle, because mine will run off the back of yours.
Well, mine had to be, I know a lot of Australia will probably agree, but Vauban was the most disappointing thing for my spring. I was one of those fools who jumped in, backed him again. I thought from the experience he would run a lot better in a second cup, but he was a mess in the yard, didn't handle the conditions once again, and I am proud to say I'm done with this horse. I don't care that he's coming to Australia. I don't care that Gai Waterhouse is going to have him. Gai thinks he's going to grow an extra leg and run in the Cup again next year, but I'm done. I cannot trust that horse anymore.
You'll get a good report card on Gai, because she's a tough trainer. He'll either step up or he'll fail real quick. So I reckon we'll know in 6 months' time whether or not he sticks around in Australian racing. What are your thoughts on him, mate?
Well, it's a big risk, isn't it? $2 million for a horse that's failed twice in the Melbourne Cup. The thing that I think about with Vauban is, like, if it's not the Melbourne Cup, what's the race or the races where he's going to be able to recoup that sort of money that they spent on him? Like, there's a lot of money around in those sort of 2,000 metre races, But for an out-and-out stayer like him, he's
not
really
a
going to need
2,000
to
metre
win one of
horse.
those big ones, isn't he? So it's an enormous risk.
It's a big task, and for a horse that I'm hoping for their sake he does acclimatise with time. You do see a lot of those European horses do struggle, and he's had a bit of a wayward prep in that he's first up when he lands in Australia, and he does have a lot of work to do in the conditions, but you just do struggle to trust them, and especially if they're going to be, I think they're going to an autumn and then come back for the spring for the Cup. So it's going to be a tough task to see how he does go there.
I think, I think he turns up, and if he can win a Sydney Cup, then maybe he's the horse that they thought he would. And if he doesn't, maybe he goes back to Melbourne and goes over a few flights of hurdles.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's always that, isn't there?
He'll have to run every week to pick up that $2 million paycheck.
Yeah, he's going to be doing a lot of work, the old boy. Matt, what was your most disappointing part of this carnival?
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting Luke's thoughts on this. My most disappointing thing of the carnival was Joe Moreira's ride in the Melbourne Cup on Buckaroo. I don't know what he was doing.
No, his ride in the Caulfield Cup was worse.
You're on the favourite, and he's drawn barrier, 20? Like, there's question marks over whether he stays the trip in the first place. By going back to second last or last or wherever he was and taking off at the 800 metre mark, he gave the horse no hope.
Mate, why would you bring this up? Like, I don't know if you know, but I was on him for the Melbourne Cup, Caulfield Cup double at 1,200 to 1.
Oh,
So
Yeah, it was a touchy subject.
Anyway, I'm with you. Like it's hard for me because growing up as a kid, him and Christophe Soumillon were my idols, right? Like they're the people that I watched riding and I tried to ride like, and they were the champions in my eyes. So take nothing away from Joe because he is a brilliant rider, but he come out here and he had a poor stint in Australia. He won that race on Buckaroo first in Melbourne, and then since there it all went downhill. And look, the Caulfield Cup ride was arguably just as bad, and then he comes out in the Melbourne Cup, like you said, and you're not the best jockeys in the world to ride them like that. You can put, I don't want to say apprentices on because it's a bad thing to say, but you can put apprentices on to go back and go to sleep in big fields like that and get him to run home. And I think he just had to test his luck. And look, that's coming from me. He was a very ordinary jockey in my time, but I just would have loved to have seen him come out and assert a little bit of dominance. And if he got trapped wide, he got trapped wide. I would have lived with it from the bad alley. But just coming out and going to sleep and going back to last, like I was ripping my ticket up at the 2,000 metre mark. And yeah, mate, I'm with you. Now you got me fired up. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, that would hurt with that sort of ticket on. But yeah, I had memories of Craig Williams on Vow and Declare coming from the wide alley and taking it upon himself. And I would have thought Joe Moreira would have had that game plan in his mind to do something like that. So just incredibly disappointing from one of the world's most highly regarded jocks.
Those big races, they attract those big jocks because what big jocks do is they take the moment in their own hands and they force an issue where one shouldn't be forced. And I don't mean that in the worst sense that they mess up the race, but like you've been dealt a bad hand, you draw 21, you really got to put that horse in position to win the race. And like 3/4 way back to the field 3 deep isn't the place to be.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Blake Shin did in the Toorak on Antino. I mean, He just said, look, I've got the best horse here, so I'll take off and catch me if you can.
Exactly.
And that's why he's one of the best in the business. So
100%. And he'll probably win Rider of the Year on it. Like, I know there's probably another 6 months to go, but like, it's nuts. Unless he comes out in Hong Kong and does the same thing.
Yeah. What was the down point for you, Luke?
Mate, it's got to be Pride of Jenny's prep. Like, I actually feel attached to this horse. Like, I used to love seeing her go around.
Had a couple of Jenny meltdowns
and
now.
this is, look, you fired me up into getting fired up again, all right? But look, she was prepared to go to a Cox Plate. And then from the outside looking in, that plan was scrambled around and flipped upside down 8 times. And she's had 4 grand finals. And look, she was, lack of a better term, fucked when she ran in the Queen Elizabeth, like after the race, and she put a gutbuster in there, and they tried to come back and run her in a Cox Plate, which I can understand. You're going to have a throw at the stumps, but when she run flat, then she should have just gone straight at the paddock. And look, she's not my mare, but if she was, she would have been very cuddled just to run in a Cox Plate. And I reckon she probably, hard to beat Via Sistina after looking at the race, but before the race, I would have been giggling if she was full on and fresh.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that it was disappointing that she didn't make the race of it in the Cox Plate that we would have loved, and probably would have meant that she didn't go to the King Charles. Like, Kieran was always sort of umming and ahhing whether or not she'd be at her best or capable of running well in the Cox Plate, coming through that on the backup. And look, she nearly won that King Charles. Like, it took Wolf to knock her off right on the line.
And
It
she
was
got
a
served
super
for
run.
2,000
She's got that
metres.
Fiend at the Valley, which was one of the great nights of the year, and she's had a pretty good prep then. So it's a fine line, isn't it? But can see where you're coming from. You know, we wanted to see her at her best in the Cox Plate, and we didn't see it.
100, like, she just shouldn't have run she probably shouldn't have run in the King Charles, and then she definitely shouldn't have run after the Cox Plate.
I don't mean any disrespect in this, but for me personally, I'm very disappointed by the sounds of things, and I think most of the racing community is on the same page, is that Tony was a bit of the puppet master and was making the decisions over Kieran. And I'm really disappointed that Kieran didn't take the initiative to put that horse first. When he came out and said that he could only prepare the horse for one grand final, and they kept running her. And then it had the tragic outcome that it did. Thank goodness that horse pulled up well and is fine and she's off to stud. But as a trainer, I do feel like you have a responsibility to your horse. That is your flat-out responsibility, and not to your owner first. And so that was just if I was not to be disappointed in Vauban, that is definitely my second.
You got such a... Sorry,
You've
mate, you
worked
go.
in stables, Bella. So, I mean, how challenging is it for trainers to I guess push back against owners in that scenario? Because for a lot of us looking on, we would just think that the owners get the final say, and maybe in that case it doesn't matter what Kieran thinks, because the owner can pull whatever rein he wants.
That is a really good point, but I think at the end of the day, at least the trainers that I've worked for, and I'm definitely not saying that Kieran didn't do this. I know he would have sent that horse to the races thinking that she was at her absolute peak and there would be no issues. No trainer would send their horse out there for them to have a bleed or them to pull up lame. But at least in my experience with Annabelle, I think anyone that knows Annabelle knows just how straight to the point she is, and no one's going to pull the wool over her eyes, and she certainly wouldn't let an owner come in and dictate to her how that horse would be prepared. She would politely tell them, no, I don't think this is what's best, and give them absolutely every reason why. And I do believe that then you should wipe your hands. Like, it is on you as the trainer. You put in the noms, you put in the acceptances, and you run the horse in the race.
In a perfect world, that's the scenario. You say no and the horse doesn't run, and you as one of the best trainers in the country get your final say. But the reality of it is, like, if he says no, does he take all bloody 30 horses off him? Does he rip Jenny out of his stable? There will be someone that will say yes. Like, you can give that horse to another trainer who will run it in a King Charles, Cox Plate, and every Group 1 on the planet till it breaks down, because there's so much money involved in it, and it's a fine line when you've got a high-performing animal that is worth so much and that the people want to see run and that you as an owner want to see do well. And then on the other side, like, they are animals that they will break down if you keep running them in the ground.
Yeah.
And look, I've said this before, like, I've got this love-hate thing with Tony where I love him as an owner because he's flamboyant and he has his say and he has his piece and he gets the people involved. But then on the other hand, I'm like, sometimes you take it too far, mate, and you just took it too far with this mare. And I wish you the best with her in the future, and I hope she throws an absolute champion. But I would just love to see her go around for another 6 months, because, like, I actually giggle like a school kid when she goes around. And when she's 5 in front, it brings me full of enjoyment. Like, it's weird to say, but I love racing, and that hypes me up when I see her go around.
Yeah, I think Tony's final words on her when he retired her on race day were kind of, I think they rang true, didn't they? They figured out a way to beat her as well. Like you can't let her get 5+ lengths out in front, doing what she wants. You have to take her on and put her out even further out of her comfort zone. It's the only way to knock her off.
But even so, like, nothing against Ben and his ride. Like, he had no option. She was a flat mare at the time. But you can even see that he didn't let her roll to the extent that she probably wanted to roll. Whereas, look, apples and oranges if you put different riders on, but maybe Declan would have just let her roll. Look, I think she would have capitulated like she did because she was flat, she bled and whatever. But she is a mare that you really don't have to do too much as a jockey in that first 3/4 of the race, because she'll run her own race. And you're there just to keep the bit in her mouth, make sure she's not breaking 10-2 to the furlong, but at least running a decent clip. And look, you almost do more damage trying to hold her up than you do letting her run. So it is that fine line, knowing the mare and not knowing the mare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, another twist that we saw in the Spring Tails was John Kanga and his domination as he came in to be the CEO or chairman, of the Melbourne Racing Club. And I just love that he's coming in, making changes straight off the bat, and we are seeing a revamped spring calendar. I believe we're seeing the 1,000 Guineas Day move to Caulfield Cup Day, which really just opens up those doors for so many fillies. Matt, what is your thoughts on everything that John is doing there?
Firstly, I think John Kangaroo is great. I love his passion, love his enthusiasm. I love the way that he's thinking about making the races more affordable, not just for the punter, but also ways that they can strip back costs at clubland. And he's been very transparent. Like, he got voted in on a couple of particular points, and he's stuck to his guns on that. They are keeping Sandown, which is it pleases a lot of people. But in terms of the actual programming itself and the idea that the 1,000 Guineas could move back, I must admit, I really liked 1,000 Guineas Day last week. I know I'm not. I know there's a lot of people not exactly in the same camp as me there, but I felt like it was a nice way to end the carnival. 2 Group 1s, 1,000 Guineas. That race produced,
do you get a better
Golden
field?
Star, Skybird, and Komochi last year, so it's worked.
Do you get a better field moving that race?
I think we will. Like, a lot of the fillies will come in from the flight stakes, and then they could arguably use that race, if it's on Caulfield Cup Day, as a launch pad into the Oaks, if I'm correct. So we would see a lot better field, I think, having it earlier in the carnival.
I'm under the opinion on moving it simply because you do get the better field. But, like, I would love to speak to John and go, do you want to move it because of the horses, or do you want to move it because of the public and the people that you get to that meeting, or is it a bit of both? Because I do think you get more people at a meeting earlier in the season, and you get better horses in a meeting earlier in the season. But then again, that's above my pay grade, and I really don't have any idea what I'm talking about.
Depends what you define success in that sense, isn't it? Like, is it about turnover or is it about crowd numbers? I didn't go to 1,000 Guineas Day, but I really enjoyed watching it on the TV. And then, the fact that if there's a bit of a question mark over how many of those horses had been going onto the Oaks, so I can understand that argument too. And Caulfield, they want to keep that day at the end of the carnival.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they keep that day, they need to have something on the program. Now, there's talk that the CF4 might move to that day, and they might get some of the weight for age horses out of Cup Week. I'm not convinced they will, but you don't know until you try.
It's one of those things. This year, that day felt like it was more of an afterthought for horses, that run good races in their grand final, but could have one more, and that's where they went. They went to Guineas Day.
Yeah, it kind of feels almost as a spectator like a bit of an afterthought, and we're even seeing the Sir Rupert Clarke potentially being moved back to be run on the Caulfield Guineas Prelude, which then makes it a lead up into the Toorak, which again, you're attracting such better horses into those fields, and it doesn't become, unfortunately, like a bit of an afterthought and a last throw at the stumps to get that Group 1 before the season ends.
Well, there's nothing worse than picking up those race fields and looking at a Group 1 race and not knowing 90% of the field.
Yeah, so many of them come through from a Group 3 and they're making a major step up, which is great for their pedigrees, but it is just not that Group 1 quality that we are chasing as a genuine punter.
So do you reckon they would have got a better field having this year's Sir Rupert Clarke earlier? Like, I'm just thinking that the race this year, it still had Komochi, who was, top class mare, another Will's the horse on the up, Jimmy Star's on the up. It had a lot of those handicap horses on the up. Do you think you would have got a better field earlier in the year?
I don't want to shit on these two horses because I do like them, but I've been pressing the point that another Will and Jimmy Star might not be Group 1 horses. And the fact that they couldn't win their own setup Group 1 on Saturday probably proves that point. Like, I just thought it was a 2-horse race. Like, if there were either one of them was ever going to win a Group 1, it was going to be on Saturday, and they couldn't come to the table and do it. It just proves the point that those fields probably aren't as good as what they need to be Group 1 races at the end of the carnival.
Yeah, I do agree. Another massive change that we've seen coming is actually this weekend. We head to Cranbourne and we've got the first running of the Meteorite. And Matt, this is a slot race. How is the vibe down there in Melbourne? As someone from Queensland, you're looking at the fields and a lot of the slots were filled on Monday morning. This is kind of feeling like a little bit of another afterthought race where maybe it's going to take a little bit of time to catch on.
Yeah, I don't know whether the slot element resonates at all, to be honest. But I think the race itself, it's a pretty good sprint race at this time of the year, considering that the Winterbottom's next week. So there's a few horses that would have maybe headed over there, like Barrakill, for example, who's only beaten 2 lengths in a champion sprint. And I think Southside racing, like that area of Melbourne, the racing population out there is growing so quickly that there's an argument that we should be investing in these sort of races out there. So I'm just intrigued to see how it goes. I think the race, it's got a tail. It's clearly got a tail. There's no doubt about that. But look, Barrakill might be a really nice horse.
I think he is, to be honest. I've been enjoying following his journey, and he does seem to just keep growing. So I'm really intrigued to see how he runs, especially in this race. I believe they actually secured him for the slot really early too, so they must have a lot of faith in this horse.
Don't Southside have him in their slot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll recoup their own money in year one. How good.
Good little investment.
What's he, $1.90 or $1.80 or something? I'd be taking him all day.
I know, right?
Yeah. What a great story with him as well, isn't it, though? Like, starts his career as a 5-year-old. They were so patient with him. Troy Corsten's actually covered the vet bills after, I think, the second or the third injury that he had. So I'm so pleased for them that they're getting their rewards with him.
Oh, absolutely. It's just been a really good journey to follow. Sorry, Luke, you go.
Is the whiz on him too? The whiz is on him? Yeah.
Yeah, did you see the cheeky DM that he sent to racing.com at the barrier draw? He just, so much personality on that bloke.
I just want to see him win it just so I can see the celebrations afterwards. That's like, look, God on him for winning the big races, but I'm here for the celebrations after the big races because that's what makes me laugh.
Oh, that win on Pinstriped and DJing in the Silks, that is just an iconic moment of the spring.
The Instagram post you put up of like knocking Mr. Brightside out with his face and Craig on the thing is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I interviewed him on the Tuesday after the race at Benalla. And looking at him, I think he'd had a good couple of days celebrating.
Yeah,
I
sleeps.
Wouldn't put it past him.
He's a loose unit, so good on him, and I'm here for it, mate. If you have the success, then you should be able to reap the rewards and celebrate the way you want to celebrate.
100%.
Absolutely. All of the Group 1 celebrations are heading over to the west side this weekend. We have the Group 1 Railway running over the 1,600 metres. Luke, who's your contender for this race?
Look, I'm all over Light Infantry Man. I just think his run last start was just too good. You got Kieran taking a horse to Perth, targeting a Group 1. James making the flying visit over from Hong Kong. I think they just notch another one up, and I really do think it's just a fill up for that team.
Fill up? Gee, that's confident.
I do, mate. He's what, $3.90 or $4 or something? I think he's just the best horse in the race. Look, I've been wrong before, but I do like him here. I really do like him.
It does set up really well.
I understand he's the map horse, isn't he? Drawn barrier too. Like he's
got all the favourites.
He's
got all the favourites.
What did he beat at Flemington? He beat Globe, who in the jury's out. Ain't No Deal Done, who's at best a handicapper, and Poison Chalice, jury's out as well. So I reckon there's a bit of a question mark over what he beat at Flemington.
I get where you're coming from. Like, is there a bit of a question mark on a few of these starters in this race?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not a deep race.
If he was not a lot of depth.
I understand. Look, if he was going to the strongest Group 1 on the planet, I would say no, you're not a chance. But he goes to a railway, which he's targeted, and the field's sort of not fallen away, but it's not the strongest field in the world. And I just think you've got the combination of the best jockey in the world and one of the best trainers in Australia with a very good horse that has carried weight. Still give them a touch-up last start. He's got a good alley. What else do you need?
Yeah, the stars do look to align, don't they? I like one at odds in the race. I'll give you my tip. I reckon it's my best value all weekend.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Port Lockroy from the Nation Archibald stable.
Yeah, I do like that horse. I do like it.
He's just tracking this prep. I reckon he's got a big win in him. And look, he's another one that sort of needs things to align for him. But if he gets luck, he's drawn okay there in 9. He's come through that Golden Eagle. Now, Steffi Magnetica, who finished 5th, franked that form at a Champions Mile at Flemington. I know she was unlucky in the Eagle, but that race always stands up. So I think he's good enough, and he's only got 53 kilos on his back. So
no weight
$18 or something like that, great each way value.
Great value. And the team have had great raps on him, actually, since he's arrived over there. He had a little beach trip and seems to be loving life. So hopefully he'll be fresh up and roaring and ready to go. Yeah. Now, Luke, you've turned your back on the locals for your pretender. Who do you have for us?
You're going to get a lot of hate
You're
from
going to get a
Perth
lot
here.
of hate.
I just, look, as my pretender this week, I had Zip Away. Look, local horse and runs in Melbourne. The prep before this was super around some good horses, but I just think the 12 Alley and just has enough speed to, like, put himself in an awkward spot. Look, I just can't see this horse running a good enough race to win. Got held up in the lead steer the start before, got out with maybe 200, 150 metres to go, and I just thought he'd dash and really show that zip, and that would have been enough to ignite me for this race, but there was nothing there, didn't really put in that run when he got out, and look, that's the line through the paper for me, and I don't think he could win this race.
Alrighty, how's your form on the Pretender front, Luke?
He's 100% on his pretenders. His contenders can be a
contenders
bit
keep running second.
sometimes.
What do you think of Zip Away?
Yeah, I wouldn't be backing him this weekend. Yeah, for sure. Not one of mine in the railway.
Yeah, there's much better chances for me if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. We also have the little jewel of Kembla Grange. We've got the Gong being run this weekend. Luke, who do you have for us for a contender here?
I'm all over Gringotts. The alley is a worry, and I know it's probably what's scaring everyone else off that would like to back.
Tommy could get another suspension and cop a massive fine here?
So, look, I don't want to wish it upon anyone, but if I back him on Saturday, I hope
I'm sure
he does.
he'll be getting the job done, that's for sure.
But look, he did it last start from a wide alley. The record's on the door. What's he, 16 from 8 and 7 placings or something like that. Win last start was very impressive from the alley, like I said. And if he jumps and goes forward, he gets the same run. He's very capable of taking the sit if this horse needs to. But look, I think Tommy just gives him a bit of a squeeze, gets in a nice spot, and then he runs away with it again.
Yeah, he's the horse on the up there, isn't he? Like, he's just flying. But I'm a little bit worried about that gate with the big weight too. So
if he drew 7, we wouldn't even be having a discussion. We'd be at the tab trying to feed some money into the terminal. But I'm with
exactly.
you. I get the alley is a very big question mark. But look, he's drawn there before and he's won. Tommy's a very good pilot, and I just think he's got the speed and the manoeuvrability to ride him where you want to ride him as a jockey. And if something goes wrong and you have to take that sit a pair or two further back, he's got the ability and the demeanour to be ridden like that.
Yeah, look, if he ticks the box on races in the autumn, like I know the camp are really keen to try him out in some harder company, and look, if he ticks the box there on Saturday, you'll see some good ones in the autumn.
Oh, 100%. That's what I'd like to see. Like, you just want to see what's in store for him and where he can get to, because every race he runs for me, you just keep going, shit, he keeps getting better and better. And where's his limit?
Always so consistent.
And if he wins on Saturday, you go, shit, look, the autumn looks pretty bloody good for him, and the team will be real happy.
Who's your pretender for this race, Luke?
It's a bit of an omen bet because I live on Waterford Court. And I'm sacking Waterford here for my pretender. Look, his run was poor, never really showed anything in the little dance, albeit he carried a very heavy weight with 62. Draws a bit of a gate, but racing pattern suggests he'll probably go back again. And look, he's never won at the mile, and I don't see that changing on Saturday, unfortunately.
What do you have for us for your best bet? Where are you headed here, Luke?
My best bet? Go back to Ascot for my best bet. I really like Pikey all day, which isn't that hard. But, no, I really like him. Race 6, number 11, Yonga Lass. Storming run last start in the Group 3. Bit of an ordinary alley, and had to go back and was last on the turn and swooped the field. And if you want to go back and look at the replay, geez, it was a flashing run and probably got beat just a bob of the head going to the line. So I think if this horse can do the same thing again on Saturday, I think the chocolates are in the bag already. What about yourself? What's your best bet for the weekend?
I'm at Kembla Grange, race 9, I'm Group 3, the Warra run over the 1,000 metres. I am all in for Hedged, actually. The couple of the guys here at the podcast studio are actually in this horse. He's first up. He's been trialling really well. I think he is currently our favourite, but at $4.50 still, I think, at the time of filming. I'd love to see this horse win, and I think we're going to film a really good episode next week if this horse does win.
We might have to have a studio party when he gets his head over the line first.
A few beers at the studio next week, that's for sure. But I think it's setting up sort of on a pathway towards Magic Millions. So regardless, I'm excited to see this horse run. I think this race is a really good launch pad as we warm up into the summer. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Matt, you went the early crow and said Port Lockroy, but do you have anything else for us?
That was my best probably value of the weekend. I reckon there's close to a good thing in the third at Cranbourne with Ahariri, who she stays all day. She gets a race where she really should just be putting it away there on the weekend. She's sort of been racing against harder company, drops back in grade, and I just reckon she'll win, and you can start lining up now to count your cash.
That's a big call. Shall we do?
Very big call.
We'll stop off at the tab on the way home.
Label Coleman a total moral last week. So.
We've all been on the receiving end of a bad one, mate. Trust me, I've had more than my fair share.
That's it.
Well, Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here for your very first episode of Racing Extra. We've enjoyed it so much, and all of the insight from Melbourne has just been great. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, guys. Really enjoyed it, and hope you guys are well, and we can enjoy another big weekend of racing.
Absolutely.
For sure, mate. Here's to the fill-ups, and we'll line our pockets for Saturday. So pleasure having you on the show, and I'm going to go back a Riri right now.
Good stuff.
Well, happy punting, boys, and make sure you tune in next week on Racing Extra as we are cooking up a very special episode. A massive thank you to our sponsors for this week's episode, Cyanace. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to Racing Extra for a next-gen racing experience.